Good Thursday morning, Market Chameleons, and those joining for the first time. Thanks for coming by and checking out the Market Chameleon pre-market show. Before we get to the special guests, let's go through the disclaimer. Market Chameleon, myself, our special guest, none of us are investment advisors. So please read the disclaimer to realize you are just getting information for informational purposes only. And as we wait for our guests to appear for the special session, all the way from the mother country, beautiful Costa Rica, my twin brother, Adam McBride. Wait. Before you say anything about the age, we'll let the chameleon community, everyone who's on, some longtime viewers, some people probably just stopped in today. Guess, put in the chat, who do you think's older, Adam or myself? That's the first guess. Second, for people asking, why is this my lookalike on the show? Adam was the one who pushed both Dimitri and I to actually get into trying to use YouTube and other social media elements to let people know about Market Chameleon. So he's instrumental in us doing what we do every day during these market hours. I mean, it's not a beautiful thing, but it does get done, and I hope it helps people. But if you go to the first probably, I don't know, what do you think, Adam? 200, 300 episodes, maybe? Most of them were Adam and I, and then Adam interviewing Dimitri a couple times a week. So
we got Dimitri comfortable on camera, man. That was goal number one. So a big win.
Yeah, no, I mean, Dimitri's he's on, well, he's not on national TV yet, but we're pushing him to try to do some things on CNBC or Fox or something, some business shows. But I did before. Well, actually, why don't you let people know a little bit about so you've been doing some real interesting things since you went out and took your skill set out into well, I won't even say it, but let people know what you've been doing for the past 4 years.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been doing obviously a lot of social media stuff, obviously with you, really started with you, got into podcasting, did tons of podcasting work, had the #1 podcast for a brief period of time here in Costa Rica when I was putting them out every day. And obviously like back in 2017, I got into crypto a bit, that I tried to start a business doing during the ICO boom, that totally failed, but I was always very, very interested in crypto. And when the NFT thing started happening in mid or early 2021, I got heavily involved, shifted my podcast, shifted all my socials into NFTs because I saw it intuitively as something that was super interesting. And then there was a week in March of 21 when a bunch of these old NFT projects were rediscovered. And
now wait, let's step back. I mean, we have a very smart and a community that invests in a lot of products, and I'm sure people are somewhat familiar with Bitcoin and ETH, but explain what an NFT is. Just so, I mean, you may have people hearing this for the first time. Not 100% sure, but
sure.
Let me know if this is too basic, everyone, but just let us know what an NFT is.
Sure. Well, I mean, the great thing about Bitcoin, most people think of Bitcoin as just like electronic money, but it's far more than that. What it is a decentralized ledger. And that sounds kind of stupid and whatever, but look, all our ledgers in current society are controlled by third-party actors. And whether that actor is a government or a corporation, we've seen over the last 2 years with COVID that those things can be taken away from us. And what crypto is at its core is decentralized technology where nobody owns that ledger. And so that's why Bitcoin is so huge, for those people who truly believe in Bitcoin, is that this is hard money controlled by no one. And NFTs are that for digital items. So right now, all your digital items that you have, if you're on, say, Fortnite or playing on Roblox, all those digital items are owned by the companies that own those products. What NFTs do is take those digital items and put them on that same decentralized ledger that Bitcoin's on. And what that does is basically allow me to truly own my digital items. And that's what NFTs are. And they're super powerful. We're in the base stage. We're in literally level 1 of a 10-step process. But at the core, that's what that technology is. It's ownership of digital items. And I think as you see, if you check your screen time today, you're probably seeing 10 hours of screen time every day. I think it's important that we own those digital items. in the future.
And really the NFTs were almost the first real use case scenario that took off on top of the ledgers, right?
That's exactly right.
And you, how you got into it, you were really interested. You were really interested in the early. I mean, I remember it like it was almost yesterday, but it was a while. It was like 3 years ago, right? Was it 3.5 years ago? Where you were talking about these early projects and projects that were relaunched, but people have been. What was the earliest project? Like 2000 and.
So the earliest one people would have heard about is CryptoPunks, right? There were ones much earlier than that, but CryptoPunks was the one in 2017. I'd heard about it in 2017, which were like digital items, right? I mean, these CryptoPunks, you've all seen them because they've traded for literally tens of millions of dollars. But this was the first really popular NFT project. And so those were the first ones that kind of made an impact. But the interesting thing was people were experimenting with these earlier, much earlier, all the way back to like 2011. And so in 2021, when I was kind of, got into it heavily, what we kind of realized, the small community of us realized, was people did these experiments, and these NFTs were just basically sitting on the blockchain, and you could go and just like claim them, basically just grab them for free or very little. And what they represent.
And when you say free, that is the gas charge, right? That's what they call
gas charge.
When they talk about how do they refer to it as the mining?
Like
actually, the miners are actually getting paid in the fee. That's what they're actually doing, right?
Exactly. So the way blockchain technology works is you pay a fee every time you transact. Think of it as one giant computer, and anytime you click a button on that computer, you have to pay for that transaction, and that's called a gas fee or a miner fee. And so these NFTs, these digital items, were basically sitting there in a lot of cases. Some of them you had to pay and stuff, but many of them were just sitting there, and you could just, because these people did these projects that completely failed, projects in 2016, 2015, where they were releasing NFTs and just as kind of experiments, and those were kind of just sitting there. And so a bunch of us went and hunted down some of these old projects to not only claim them, but kind of bring them back into awareness. I was much more involved in like bringing these things to awareness level rather than just going and grabbing everything. I was more about like, I'll grab a few and then I'll tell everybody about it, because I think this is really cool. Because the reality is that as we move into a digital future where everybody owns digital items on public blockchains, I think the very first kind of instances of them are going to be very collectible.
And that was but the collectability wasn't the start, right? It was just almost the involvement and how interesting it was to grab it. Or was it right at the start? Once you started talking about it and communicating it, the prices did go up. So it did fill that part of the brain right away.
I think the narrative of early and interest is a strong one for sure. I mean, most of the people obviously in Web3 and NFTs in general believe that Web3 is going to be a massive part of the world, right? Right now, it's not. Right now, it is like a fraction of a percentage of people in the world even understand what I'm talking about. Like a very, very small portion of the world understands this. But everybody in the world is massively online. And it's just a question of how people want to own digital items in the future. Do we want Google and Facebook and Apple owning all the digital real estate and all the digital items, or do we want to own them personally? And I think, I'm a free market guy, and I'm somebody who believes in the power of the individual. And I think individuals will make that choice to own their digital items on public blockchains. I just think that's an inevitability. I mean, unless we are under a tyrannical system, like it's possible that wins, but my gut says humanity and freedom wins.
Humanity and freedom. It sounds like it's a political. Is there
political
things going on?
At the end of the day, the battle lines are being drawn. I mean, look about that. It's the easiest thing to see in the world now. It's clear as day what's happening here. There's the power and the infrastructures built by and controlled by a handful of people. And the question is, do we want to do that going forward, or do we want freedom? And I think people over time have traditionally chosen freedom. And we know, as free market guys, we know that freedom and individuals build the stuff that we use and live with every day. The good stuff is built by individuals. So I think people will naturally lean into that. We all kind of understand that intuitively.
So now we'll get into the investors who are maybe don't have or want to dip their toes in the crypto space. Is there a way to play it in the lit markets here where you don't have to I don't know, put it in cold storage? Or I mean, is best, is Coinbase, and I don't want to say safe because probably nothing investable is necessarily 100% safe. But if you buy something, say you just buy some Bitcoin on Coinbase, and just leave it there. Are there risks innately just leaving it on the Coinbase platform?
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen this time and again, right? That anything that's held by a third party, you're at risk. It's that simple. We're privileged being, and I'm sure most of your listeners are from the US. We're privileged in the US in that we have the powerful US dollar and the US government who will come in and backstop us and give us our money back. But
that's because the dollar's still strong, right?
The question is, how much is that dollar worth, right? At the end of the day, if nobody can lose money and everybody gets bailed out, how much is that dollar worth when they print infinite dollars? And that is a question, we could talk about till the end of time. But at the end of the day, what crypto is about individual ownership. So if I keep my crypto on an exchange, it in some way takes away the purpose of crypto, which is I should be my own bank. So for most people, I still recommend, having it with trusted third parties, and certainly with, 401ks and the tax advantages and everything with that, for most people, having a Fidelity account and buying Bitcoin in your Fidelity account is the way to go. Like, I would recommend that for the vast majority of people. But if you are, concerned, or you're in a country where you are seriously concerned about the, implications of, government taking over bank accounts and stuff like that, I would encourage people to self-custody their crypto. And we've seen that again and again. I mean, I live in Central America. You don't need to look far to see governments that basically, I mean, we saw it in Greece where they just grab your bank account, and that stuff can happen. I don't think it's going to happen in the US, at least anytime soon. But
well, it happened to certain people in Canada too, right? During
Absolutely.
COVID, some of the people involved in that
trucker
strike, and I don't know if it was in Ontario, but it was, and I didn't get too deep into it, so I may be speaking incorrectly. But some things I read were people who were involved had their, I'm assuming they were truckers,
Yep.
their banks just shut down, right?
Yeah, literally, third party companies, banks and stuff, were worried about the government penalizing them, so that they literally just took away those people's bank accounts. And actually, there was a GoFundMe, which we're all familiar with GoFundMe. Somebody had set up a GoFundMe for like $5 million. GoFundMe just took that $5 million and just put it into something else. I mean, can you imagine this? This is where, when I say battle lines are being drawn, this is what I'm speaking of. And I think the best thing about COVID is that COVID woke us all up to this world, this layer that was on top of us being in the US and Canada, that we couldn't necessarily see the propaganda that was right in our face. And now I think at least a good portion of us, we see it. I mean, it's clear as day now.
Yeah, I don't know if the chameleon community's all that we still may be behind the blind of you can imagine what Christmases are like at the McBride household. No one guessed who was older, by the way, you or I. But from you got into this and it's been, it is amazing how much, you go to conferences in Saudi Arabia. There is real wealth in the space, right?
Sure.
It's like people are using it as a avenue to put capital, to work. There were ways, and I don't know if there are now, but there were ways to lend it at times. So there were things you could do with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But certainly people with lots of capital got in, and not necessarily all of them early. I was stupid enough to dip my toe into ETH. I think I've mentioned it before, but it's a small amount near the top. And then to counter that, I did buy, and I didn't buy, and the ETH is in Coinbase, so I have used Coinbase, but I did buy, and what's the symbol I think is GBTC. Not that anyone should go get involved in any of this. This is purely for informational purposes only and discussion. But you had recommended a while ago, that was the way you played. And then it's basically like a closed-end fund. And I think it's on the pink sheets to trade it, but it trades at like a 50% discount to the Bitcoin, right? And they know how many Bitcoins are in there, but there's so many risks in the space. It's still trading at a pretty big discount, isn't it?
I believe it's still at a huge discount. There's a lot of uncertainty is like how that fund is going to go. Is it going to be acquired? I think we saw BlackRock put in for a Bitcoin ETF, a day or two ago. And they might actually get it. I mean, this is when I talk about, the veil that's upon us. I mean, people have been trying to get a Bitcoin ETF for 5 years. And the way this thing works, man, you got to have the right political connections and stuff. So BlackRock's probably going to get it.
I did read Citadel was also working on an actual another licensed exchange. So there are people big in the space, big in the equity and ETF space who are trying to add, safeties, controls, and mechanisms to make it, a more comfortable place. And Laurent just asked, he's like, what about all the scams in the NFT space? Obviously, Laurent knows maybe a little more than myself or anyone else about NFTs. There are, in all these things, there were pump and dump schemes. There were things going on that probably weren't for the faint of heart. Is that correct?
Oh man, it's 1,000,000%. Yes, absolutely correct. I would say at the end of the day, crypto is free market capitalism. And what happens in free market capitalism is you get massive scams. And so I think, understanding that's what there is going to be that at the core. You have to be very careful and you have to be smart. You can't put all your stuff in, all your eggs in one basket. But you understand the situation and what it is. And so right now we're going through this thing about like regulatory capture and what's going to happen in the space and if the space is even going to exist, because I think, the main potential risk to crypto is government action. I saw today was like Chuck Schumer was talking about regulating AI and stuff. And it's like, do any of us think that that's going to be a good thing? Do we think that's going to help the AI industry in America grow and flourish? So, are there scams? Yes. Does that help? Is the SEC of crypto going to help prevent scams? Come on, man. I mean, it's like, we know that dog don't hunt. All you got to do is look at FTX and what SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried did with FTX to know that it's all glad handing and payments to politicians to get your stuff through, while at the same time he's basically scamming everybody on the platform. The SEC did nothing. So no, do I think isn't
he going to go to jail though?
Supposedly it's like going to be, dude, he's going to get like this cakewalk 3 to 5 years at some penitentiary in North Carolina where he gets to chill out and play golf on weekends. Like
really,
bro, he's going to get off so scot-free, man. Yeah.
I mean, they sent this I'm not saying this woman who, was, and she was I like Sam Bankman-Fried. I think she was on the cover of Fortune or Forbes, and she had invented a magical machine that could take a dot of blood and like figure out if you have, cancer and whatever. First guest came in. Actually, the winner of this gets. I'm sending a T-shirt to Laurent, who's in. He's actually in. Laurent is in Amsterdam or the Netherlands. I apologize, but he's on quite a bit, and he's someone who's into technology and uses the Chameleon for a lot of different tools. But he's always brings a lot, and he sending me a picture. He's now got 2 Teslas with solar power on his roof, so he doesn't spend anything. Well,
Nice.
I guess it's nothing on running his 2 vehicles. So he's going to send me pictures of the new solar panels, and I'm going to send the T-shirt over to Europe with a disclaimer that I can't promise, because I've had problems shipping things overseas, but I will try. It's Belgium, actually. Actually, and while we're talking Belgium, I wanted to share something really quickly with the community. Wait till you see this.
Tell me about it.
Can anyone guess where that is? I'll start with
I
you.
don't see. Oh, there we go.
My older brother.
Oh, is that D right there?
That's D on holiday.
Bro, was he in Greece, man?
He's in Greece. Yep.
Living the dream, man.
I think he said Mykonos, but I'm not 100% sure.
Mykonos. Ooh.
Our
That's rich people country right there, man.
it's beautiful. Yeah. Looks good, right?
Very cool, man.
That's his beautiful wife, and they're having a wonderful time, which is nice for them. He deserves a vacation.
Awesome, man.
So anyways, we got that going on. There was we were talking about Ken Griffin, and we only got a couple minutes left, but we'll talk about it tomorrow, because Ken Griffin made an announcement today that Chinese stocks are terribly undervalued. And it made me I did do a look, because I'm obviously, I spoke about this GBTC earlier, which is the Bitcoin product I was talking about, which trades at a discount. These then we've talked about it a lot on the show within the community. These Chinese companies, there's risk, there's like Russia risk, right? Like there still seems to be risk, like something could happen, and all of a sudden there's like, we are not doing business with China anymore, and those China stocks, get them off the exchanges, and all of a sudden you're holding a bag of pebbles. They're worthless. So it seems like a tough way to play. And I was looking at some different. Actually, Ken Griffin mentioned a couple, and I thought tomorrow maybe we would go deep and talk a little bit about the Chinese stocks, and maybe the options up and the optionality of the stocks are maybe a better way to play if you're going to play a bullish position in these stocks, because you don't have the unlimited downside risk, and you can put your capital, maybe preserve it a little bit better if you want to get long these stocks using the options. So I'll go through some of that tomorrow.
Nice. Can we
just
talk
wanted
about
to
Innermost Technologies?
What's that?
You remember that play? Okay, guys, this is like 1992. We hear about this thing called the internet, or maybe it was.
Well, let's set the whole stage. My brother and I had moved to Chicago. I had gone out and visited a high school buddy who was selling a lot of different computer terminals to people on the exchange floors, and I know Rob knows, and anyone in the Midwest knows about Chicago and its trading history. But they had multiple trading floors, the MERC, the CBOE, the CBOT. So they traded futures on commodities, they traded options, they traded financial futures. So they had a lot of different products, and it was a huge community. So my buddy's like, you got to come out. And at the time I was thinking about making a career change, and my brother just graduated. So he is younger, even though people guessed older, which is nice. Thanks for that, Chuck. I appreciate that. So we went out together, and we were living in what was the neighborhood again? That was a great neighborhood in Chicago. We lived on like remember Lincoln Park? We were in Lincoln Park. Was it Buttonwood?
Supposedly a nice area now. Wasn't so nice when we lived there.
Oh, it was beautiful. But we were living in a dilapidated row home.
Six dudes in a 2-bedroom apartment, man.
Yeah, it was a squeeze. But one day I was like, I've been doing the research at the local library, and I told my brother that there was a Chinese cable company. How could you go wrong,
bro? The
billion
internet,
and a half people.
We did get the internet part right. We did in 1992 or whatever it was. We did get the internet play right. We just bet the wrong horse, man. That horse.
That horse went from $6 to 0 in about 30 days.
It was my entire life savings. as a 22-year-old, gone in smoke. If that had worked, I'd be worth $14 million right now, bro.
Yeah. You should have just called Uncle Warren and invested in his company at the time. Oh my God. You look back at these things and it's a great life lesson. And we probably put too much at the time into one stock, but you were actually able to.
But that was a good lesson learned, though. And you do need to understand. I mean, even today, like literally, this is what, 30 years later. And we're talking about it today about China and investing in Chinese companies, which are opaque. You don't have necessarily a true picture. Look, I mean, you don't even have a true picture of what's happening in the US and those companies. Everybody manipulates numbers and stuff like that. But in China, whew, it's just,
and you don't have you don't know the structure of the stock. Like in the US is, you know, the bondholders are in front of the stock. You actually know here, the Chinese companies are owned by they're set up in, I don't know, the Cayman Islands. The structure of the stocks are so opaque that you can play it, but you got to be very careful. And when Russia invaded the Ukraine, I never thought, I mean, I didn't, but I was thinking about buying the Russian ETF because it was like a screaming value play, right? Like this would just end and everything would go back. And then companies were forced to give up their Russian holdings. I mean, literally the market went to zero, right?
Yeah.
So, that's obviously a risk in China, right? And the more rhetoric between China and the US and conversation back and forth, but I did look at some different ideas and I thought tomorrow we could spend the day talking about Chinese stocks. Just get your thoughts. Anyone has questions about them, and it would be an interesting conversation. So everyone, this is my brother. He is my younger brother, though I know I look at least a decade younger on the face, at least. But thanks, Ope, for coming by and helping out the next week. Lauren, email me, William McBride. Anyone can email me, williammcbride@gmail.com if you have anything you want us to talk about in the next week. I think Dimitri comes back next Friday. So awesome job, Adam. Thanks for coming by, and we will talk tomorrow morning. Thanks.